Stop right here for a second, guys, and push record. That was a great intro I was going on that's now lost forever. But we're getting started. Eric, you're shaking your head. You need to have a sign that you hold up. Whenever we started training Eric, so hold up a sign that says record.
Eric, you have one job.
I know.
One job, that's it.
Sorry, guys, that are just tuning into this to hear us making fun of me not pushing record, but we haven't started yet. We're moving forward on a great CE class with Bruno, Utah Radon Services. And in the chat, once again, there's a link for you to put your license number in there so you can get credit for the CE class if that's applicable to you. So Bruno, I'm going to turn it over to you, my man.
Awesome. Let's jump in. So again, I'm Bruno Vassal, owner of Utah Radon Services. And I love doing these CE classes. Jody and I do 2 or 3 of these a week. And if you think about it, that's actually a lot to do. But the reason why we make this a priority is because we keep hearing from agents either wrong information or other agents that are telling them certain things. And we just want to get the word out of what is accurate and correct when it comes to radon and not. There are some myths with radon, and then there's also a lot of just information people don't know because people don't talk a lot about radon. I didn't talk a lot about radon before I started this company, so I don't blame you guys, but we do need to know, especially when it comes to real estate transactions. So let's just jump right in. Please make sure that you guys are muted so that way there's no background noise. But you can unmute yourself if you have a question or a comment. So just, there's only a few of you that have your cameras on, but just a raise of hands, how many people have ever had to deal with radon, whether it's testing or mitigation in a transaction? So, all right, great, a couple of you guys. Well, after this, hopefully all of us will start messing with radon, at least on the testing side of things. So the objectives of the next hour, number 1, if you're gonna fall asleep, please turn your camera off. And then that way I won't feel bad, so we're good there. Let's go through the other ones. We're gonna do a quick overview. What is it and why should we care? And that's a huge aspect. I mean, again, before I started this company, I did not care about radon. Once I found out about it, became passionate enough, I started a company about it. There's a lot of people who don't care about radon because they don't hear about it, and they're gonna be hearing about it more and more for sure coming up. Okay, radon in Utah, we have to test for it, we have to mitigate, fix it, and then we're gonna talk about the real estate transactions and final Q&A. So this is gonna go really pretty quick. Instead of me telling you initially, what is radon, let's actually hear from one of the leading oncologists in the world, Dr. Wallace Akerley. He's here in Utah, Huntsman Cancer Institute. He's in charge of their lung cancer division area of oncology at Huntsman. So let's just listen to him for just a couple of minutes and hear what he has to say. So this will just a quick second to get this set up. Hold on. And share screen. Okay, let me know if you guys don't hear it.
Hi, I'm Dr. Wally Akerley. I'm a lung cancer physician at Huntsman Cancer Institute. Did you know you can get lung cancer even if you don't smoke? You probably know tobacco smoke causes most cases of lung cancer, but I'll bet you don't know the second leading cause. The second leading cause of lung cancer is a gas that you can't see or smell. You could even be breathing it in every day without even knowing it. What is this mysterious gas? It's radon. It's radioactive and it comes from uranium decaying in the ground. Radon can get into homes and buildings. 30% of homes in Utah have radon levels considered unsafe by the Environmental Protection Agency. But don't worry, there's an easy way to make sure your home is safe for you and your family. Just follow these simple steps. Order a radon test kit. Do the test and fix the problem if needed. Testing for radon is easy and inexpensive. It only takes a few minutes, and it's definitely worth it to make sure your home is safe. When your kit arrives, just follow the instructions and then send it back. Most test results will show safe levels. In that case, all you need to do is retest every few years since radon levels may change over time. If the test results show your home has unsafe levels of radon, you will need to fix it. Hiring a radon professional is the best way to do this. So even though radon may be the second leading cause of lung cancer, there's a simple solution to make sure your home is safe. Order a radon test kit, do the test, and fix the problem if needed. Make sure to share this message with your family and friends so they can make their homes safe too. For more information about radon or any other cancer.
Okay, so Dr. Akerley, he had a couple of different statistics for us. So let me get back to my screen. So what were those statistics? He gave us some numbers. So how many homes out of 100 are going to test high for radon in Utah? He said about 30%. So 1 in 3 homes. And he said not just high, but he said unsafe levels of radon. So we're going to go into a whole bunch of other numbers as we keep going. So radon is what? What did he say? It is radioactive gas that comes from what in the soil? What in the ground beneath us? Uranium. So we're talking about radioactive things here. Well, there's lots of radioactive things. You know, when you go through an X-ray machine at the airport, if you go outside, the radioactivity, the cosmic radiation from the sun. If you eat a banana, who knew bananas are actually just a little bit radioactive? Not to the point that it's a problem, but there is just a little bit of actually radioactivity in there. So radon is a source of radioactivity. This is from Duke University. We actually, in Utah, get over 75% of the radiation exposure in a given year is because of radon and not because of all these other things combined. So kind of interesting. So let's just do a quick radon overview to kind of help you understand. And let's start with, this is exactly what Jeff was talking about. So how about Kimberly? You just barely had a house go under contract. Your sellers, it's on Walker's Lane, 800 square feet, single car garage. So what, about 4 million? So congratulations. Sharice, you are the buyer's agent, and your buyer comes in and says, you know what? I know that there's 16 other offers on this home, but we're still going to do an inspection, which is good, which is what you should do. And during the inspection, it comes back high radon. Both of your clients come to you and say, what's wrong with this home? Why does this home have high radon? And this is the very simple way to answer it. It starts with, very simple, there's uranium underneath the home. This is not from them bombing out in Nevada years ago. This is not from other things. It's not from they built the house wrong. It's just the house is sitting on a little bit extra uranium in the ground beneath it. Notice that I say in the ground beneath it, not in the rocks beneath it, not in the mountains beneath it, but in the ground beneath it. We're going to talk about that more in a little bit. So uranium, it is radioactive, and as it decays, because radioactive things decay, it's turning into other things. It's turning into radium, it's turning into radon, and that's where the problem is, because the radon is very easy to float up through the dirt and into our homes. So radon, if you look at the little arrows, is going to the outside, and it's also coming up into our homes. Radon, if you walk outside your house right now, there's a little bit of radon just in the outside air, but not at high enough concentrations to cause any problems. But in our homes are enclosed and they capture the radon, and the radon can build up there, and that's where our problem is. Our homes tend to be negatively pressured, especially in the wintertime. And what I mean by that is, have you ever gone into a building and you try to open up the front door? It's like almost stuck. It's like pulling it shut. That's the negative pressure inside of that building. Well, our homes do that too. And if you think about it, gases, liquids, they tend to flow towards a negative pressure area, which our homes are. So our homes are basically keeping it, trapping it, and holding it in instead of having it escape. So radon is a naturally occurring gas. This is really important to understand the why of all of this, because the why really should be, well, why aren't I hearing about this? If there's like all this radon all over the place, why am I not hearing about it? And the reason why is because who put the radon underneath Kimberly's listing? Can you sue that person? Can't find them. So unfortunately, there's nobody to go back with and to sue. Let's talk about actually something else like mesothelioma. So you hear those ads late at night, and what is that a result of? It's a result of asbestos. So asbestos was used very heavily in the 60s, 70s, and asbestos has now been found to cause mesothelioma. Well, there were employers that had you work with it. There were people that manufactured asbestos, and now there's somebody that you can actually blame and sue. And that's why there are billion-dollar settlements, and there's people, lawyers, tort attorneys that are actively pursuing that. So you hear about it. You hear asbestos is bad. There's money to be had. Actually, I just made that up. I wasn't trying to rhyme. I apologize. That was really bad. Okay, so asbestos, lots of money there. Radon, the EPA has some suggestions. They've left it up to the states to do things with. But ultimately, there's not this big treasure chest or treasure trove of money for radon. Therefore, the radon awareness is less. That said, more and more is happening in the US and especially in Utah as we get outsiders moving in whose states are much more active than ours. We're hearing more about radon. So again, naturally occurring gas, it's not sticky, you can't smell it, you can't see it, and it's floating up into our homes from beneath. And I mentioned here buildings as well. Buildings can have high radon just like homes can. So what are the health effects of radon? And again, this now goes to the why. Why should we care? And the answer is it being radioactive, it can damage the DNA in our lungs and therefore cause lung cancer. So the EPA states that 14% of all lung cancers are attributable to indoor radon. And lung cancer is a horrible disease. I think 5 years out from being diagnosed, it has more than a 90% mortality rate. So you get lung cancer, and that is a very, very difficult diagnosis. Cancers, we're talking about that. So there's prostate cancer, breast cancer, skin cancer, colon cancer. What would be the most deadly cancers of all of them? And the number one is actually lung cancer. Lung cancer kills more than 150,000 Americans per year. And if you actually take the next 2 or 3 cancers in the list, combined, they don't kill as much as lung cancer. So if we're 14% of that, then that means that the EPA estimates that around 21,000 lung cancer deaths per year are attributable towards radon. So when your clients are asking you, why should I care about radon? You know, how big of a deal is it? A simple answer is lung cancer kills more Utahns than drunk drivers. So there are, I think it's around 600 to 700 fatalities with just driving fatalities in Utah per year. Lung cancers on average are in the 500s per year in Utah. So it really affects a lot of families here in Utah. So before we just get onto that, you know, does radon cause other things? Does it cause asthma? Does it cause headaches? And the answer is no. However, radon has now been correlated with brain cancer, leukemia, Parkinson's, and Alzheimer's. And so something to keep into effect. But we're going to focus on this with the lung cancer effects. So when we're talking numbers, and we're going to talk numbers throughout this presentation, is the number 7 scary? Is the number 26 scary? Is the number 2 scary? And it's not scary if it's not put into context. So let's start bringing what this radiation dosage is in terms of context. So when you're getting a radon test in a real estate transaction or even for your own home, it's going to be measured in picocuries, and they're going to come up with a number, and it's usually a whole number and then a single decimal point. So if you come back with a test that's 4.0 picocuries, that is the equivalent dosage of radiation of receiving 200 chest x-rays per year. That'd be like going and getting a chest x-ray, every day and a half. It's also the equivalent risk of if you were smoking 8 cigarettes a day. So you could be going to the gym, you could be eating well, but if you live in a 4 picocurie home, it'd be like you were smoking 8 cigarettes a day in terms of risk. The EPA actually has charts where they have, if you're a smoker, if you're a non-smoker, this is the radon levels. It actually has the mortality rates. If you live in a home with 10 or 20 or 4, it'll actually say out of a number of 1,000 people, what's the chances of getting lung cancer. So there are homes in Utah that are 10 picocuries, and there are actually homes that are much more than that. The highest test that we've ever tested is 155 picocuries. So as you can see in the red letters, that would be the equivalent of smoking 15 packs of cigarettes a day. Pretty amazing. So that home, we then went in, we fixed it, we installed a radon system, and it went from 155 to under 2 in a day, just by fixing. So very fixable, but still pretty scary. So there are plenty of homes, 155, that's the highest. There are lots of homes though in the 20s, 30s, 40s plus, especially out in the Harriman area, South Jordan area. There are some really, really high homes. Also, once you get up into the canyons. So up in the Heber area, Midway and Park City, there's some very, very high homes. So just kind of moving this forward. So we now know, all right, what is it? It's uranium underneath our homes or buildings. And why should we care? Because of the lung cancer. And the lung cancer is not just a little bit, it's a concern. So stepping back for one more thing before I jump onto this. So Utah, we are the least smoking state in the nation. So congratulations, we don't smoke very much. Unfortunately, our lung cancer is high still. And the reason why is because the radon's high. Utah is 5 times higher than the national average when it comes to radon. And so, the national average is 1 in 15 homes. And as we heard from Dr. Akerley, it's 1 in 3 here in Utah. So unfortunately, even though we don't smoke that much, we still have high lung cancer because of the radon. So, yes.
Before you get too far removed from this point you were talking about levels and readings and numbers and stuff on that last slide. Charisse had put in the chat that she wanted to know where was that 155 reading? Where did
I'm going to show you on a map. So yep.
Oh, perfect.
Very good. No, great question. Because our company we actually do 80% of all of the radon testing and mitigation in the state. And so we actually have tens of thousands of tests that we can now show you interactive maps. They're private. We can't share them, openly because, it's down to the exact house, but I can kind of just show you areas. So we're going to get to that. Great question. Before we get to the areas though, let's talk about the types of homes that can have high radon, because we get a lot of agents that get this information wrong. So number one, we hear all the time, but it's a brand new house. Wait, they just barely finished it. It hasn't had time to get, anything. It doesn't have a cracked foundation. What? And the answer is, all that matters is what's beneath the home. If there's uranium underneath the home in a little bit higher concentrations, that home's going to have high radon. Even though it's airtight, the radon is so small. I mean, we're talking individual atoms here. It can permeate up through 4 inches of slab. It can go up through pipe penetrations, cold joints. It will find its way into the more negatively pressured home, which is the case. So here we have, all right, so we have a new home and we have then the high radon there. And by the way, when that home is finished and they say, okay, we put the doorknobs on, we're done. How long does it take before that home has the high radon? 12 hours. So you open up all the windows in a home, you air it out, you close everything up. Within 12 hours, it's back to the same high radon. That's why we can't just air out our homes once a week and there's no problem. So just FYI. Next one, but it's an old home. It's leaky. I've got, all the windows are leaking. And the answer is, yeah, if there's uranium underneath that home, the leaking windows actually will cause more of a stack effect and will actually pull more up. And yes, it's leaking out, but it's pulling more as well. You got a new home and an old home side by side with the same amount of uranium. You ask me to guess which one's going to be higher. No clue. Same. Old homes, new homes, just the same as of a chance of having high radon. But the home doesn't have a basement. This one's really insidious. It only has a crawl space. Well, remember I said that with a basement slab of 4 inches, the radon can permeate still up through. In a crawl space like the picture on the left, we don't have anything. We've got dirt. If that dirt has radon in it, that radon's coming up. And now what's going to stop it from going into the home? You've got some floor joists, some plywood and carpet compared to a 4-inch slab. That's coming up. So homes with crawl spaces can have just as high of radon as homes that have basements. So just FYI, you want to test every single home, new, old, crawl space. What about slab on grade? This is the most insidious of them all. So if there's nothing else that you remember in this entire presentation, remember this one fact, and that is slab on grade homes have just as high of a likelihood of having high radon as a home with a basement. A lot of big, senior real estate agents that have been around forever, they say, oh, no, you don't need to worry about that. And they're perpetuating something that's very, very wrong and deadly. I say deadly because there's unfortunately stories. Last year, Deseret News did an expose on radon, and part of it, they had a story of a gentleman 10 years ago who purchased a home in Olympus Cove, and it was a slab on grade home. His agent told him, you don't need to test for radon, it doesn't have a basement. He did not test. 6 years later, he has lung cancer. They said, test your home, and his home has high radon. And so that his real estate agent, I don't think that they were trying to be negligent. Maybe they were. I don't think that they were trying to hurt their client, but ultimately that very, very bad advice caused their client not to test, not to identify, and ultimately to die. So really dramatic, but it's true. We are talking to agents all the time, and we get agents, sellers agents. Well, wait, why are you testing this home? It doesn't have a basement. It's telling us these agents don't know. So this is why we're doing this CE class. Remember this, slab on grade homes, just as high of radon possibility as a basement home. I get agents all the time that say, but it's got a walkout basement. And I say, wonderful, I bet it's beautiful, easy to get to the hot tub. But what does a walkout sliding door have anything to do with radon? And the reason why is it doesn't. So the radon is coming up from underneath, not from the sides. So the fact that it has a walkout basement. Now, if you opened up that screen door all the time in January, and they had a $6,000 heating bill, and they opened up all the other windows of the basement, yeah, they probably don't have a problem, but that's not a good solution. So walkout basements, just as likely. Townhomes, just a little tiny footprint. Many of these townhomes, we're seeing 150 square feet of entryway, and then you go up to the main floor, which is one floor above. These townhomes, they're sitting on this postage size stamp of ground. If that ground has high uranium in it, it's going to be then high as well. So the key to these, and these are like homes out in Daybreak or Harriman, if you have a client that is interested in a home or selling a home, where should the radon test go? And it should be the lowest potentially livable area. So if that townhome has either an office or a bedroom on that entry level, the lowest level, then yes, we should test there. If it's only an entryway, you want to test one level above. That's really important because nobody's going to spend time in the entryway. So that's important. All right, so good news. We got a couple of things that aren't homes that aren't high. So what do you think there are some types of homes that aren't high. Jeff, I'm going to put you on the spot. What do you think? Any type of homes that you can think of that wouldn't be high radon? Oh, you're thinking.
A mobile home.
Excellent. Also a houseboat. Yeah. And then of course treehouse as well. So no, I mean seriously, so every single type of home. Now there is one type of home that we didn't mention that we don't have a lot of these here in Utah, high-rise apartments. if your client is levels 3 or above, the EPA says you don't need to worry about testing. But if they're on the first 2 levels, then yes, they should test for radon.
What
Okay,
about
so
if they're on stilts?
if they're on stilts, wait, that's my treehouse. There you go. Then no, you don't need to test. So all joking aside, if it is a mobile home and it is on a foundation, then yes, you should test. If it's a mobile home that is just wrapped and it's on cinder blocks, then no, you don't have to. There's way too much airflow beneath. So good questions. Okay, which areas have high radon? This is kind of the fun interactive area. We'll get into those live maps. Let's start with the US. First of all, the US, if you look, there's 3 zones that are most likely to have high radon. It doesn't mean that the zone 3, which is the yellow, doesn't. It just means you're more likely in a zone 1 in the red. See any trends here? If you think about it, it seems like the top half of the United States has higher radon than the lower half. The reason why? 10, 13,000 years ago, the ice age, the glaciers had come down, they scraped off the topsoil, revealing more uranium-rich ground, and they stopped about midway in the country when the ice age then started to recede. So that's the reason why. If you look, a lot of agents mistakenly say, oh, it's because of granite and mountains. That mountains have nothing to do with radon, and this map shows you exactly that. Look at Nebraska, look at Iowa, Illinois. They do not have mountains, and they have high radon. So mountains make no difference when it comes to radon. Now, there are some pockets where the uranium may be higher, but it's not the mountains, it's not granite. Can granite have uranium in it? Yes, but does it always have in it? No. So that's also a myth. It has nothing to do with that. So Utah, this is a geological map of the uranium deposits, the major uranium deposits. Basically, what you should see here is it's scattered all over the place. So that's all you need to really take from that map. So let's jump into the Utah radon situation, and then we're going to actually jump into some maps. So the first thing is, Dr. Akerley said 1 in 3 homes have high unsafe levels of radon. Now there are some areas that are pockets that have really high, not just 1 in 3, but 80 or 90%. So if you are in Heber or Midway, you have about a 90% chance, and the radon levels average between 10 and 15 picocuries there. So really high, not just a little bit. Again, a 15 picocurie home is like you're smoking a pack and a half of cigarettes of risk a day. So there are other pockets in the valleys that I'll show you in the maps in a second where there's high as well. So to put it into perspective, we're going to start getting really into the numbers. The average radon concentration across the US that have been tested is 1.3 picocuries. So remember, 1.3 is kind of the average. So what are considered unsafe levels? The Realtors Associations kept pushing the EPA, give us an action level, give us a number, because we don't know, what to do. What do we advise our clients? The EPA came back with this advice. They said, you want to consider fixing your homes when the radon levels are between 2 and 3.9, because they're now elevated. At 2, it's almost double the average. At 3.9, it's triple. And once you get to 4 or above, you need to fix it. So when you get a client that their home tests at 4.1 picocuries, I've had many agents say, oh, it's just barely over. Well, that 4.1 is actually 3 times over the national average. So 3.9 is not instantly safe, and 4.1 is not instantly going to kill you. So when they say consider fixing the homes, when we get calls all the time. So a client, personal call up, hey, my home tested at 3.2 in the basement. What should I do? And I immediately ask, well, tell me about your basement. Is it finished or unfinished? They say it's unfinished. Do you spend any time down there? No. Then I advise them, you don't need to fix it. But if you ever finish your basement and you start having people, spend time down there and sleep down there, I'd fix it. So we're not just trying to bust and fix every single home. We want to fix the homes where it makes sense. And in this case, if you have a home, let's say again, a basement, and it tests at 2.9 and your kids sleep down there, What should you do? Hopefully this next little piece of numbers will help. The World Health Organization is more conservative than the EPA. And they said at 2.7 or above, you should fix. So that's why when you get clients that are in the threes, I mean, it's elevated. So, just be aware that, 3.9 is not instantly low. A lot of agents are saying, oh, good, we got 3.9, we're totally safe. No, that's actually not the case. One more number for you when it comes to, percentages. 2/3 of all radon deaths occur in homes that are below 4. So let me say that again. 2/3 of everybody who gets lung cancer because of radon, it was not because they were in homes that were 10, 15, or 20. They were actually in homes below 4, and it still got them. So why did they say 4? Well, when we're dealing with now below 4, that's now tens and hundreds of millions of homes, and not just millions of homes. So they made the threshold level 4. They're actually considering bringing it down to the World Health Organization 2.7. The key is just you really understand, 3.9 is elevated. So Utah transactions, you guys need to know, how does this affect me? Well, when you have a real estate transaction, the recommended from the state and the realtors associations are, when it tests at 4 or above, then it needs to get fixed. And typically we're seeing it's the sellers that are then paying to fix it. When it is under 4, but between 2 and 4, that's where it's, again, the consider stage, and that's where it's more negotiable of who would fix it, who would not fix it. So if you have a test and it comes back at 4.5, can you demand that the seller fix it? No. This is just like you can't demand that they fix their leaky roof, but it is highly encouraged by the EPA in the state that somebody fixes it because it's too high. All right, we're going to jump into our interactive maps now, and let's see what you guys think. So, all right, let me show you what this all means. So, on the left-hand side, we have the key, and that's based on all the colors. So what you can see is blue is radon tests that were below 4. Orange between 4 and 8, red 8 and 15, and dark red above 15. I'm just going to zoom out for a quick second so you can kind of see, what we're looking at. So this is the Salt Lake Valley. We've got Tooele and Stansbury Park and Grantsville over here on the left, and then we've got Utah Lake and Utah Valley down there. So I'm going to zoom into Salt Lake. We're going to still stay zoomed out. So what are we initially seeing here? What should we expect to see? If 2/3 of the homes come in below 4, what color should we see the most of? Blue. And that's what we're seeing. So this is good. So we're seeing, okay, most of this is blue. As I zoom in, let me just ask one more thing. A lot of agents again saying, oh, it's the problem on the benches up on the mountains. Are we seeing that? No, it's salt and pepper all over the place. Let's zoom in some more. By the way, I mean, look at how many radon tests. This is just in the last couple of years. We do a lot of radon tests. Okay, you see how many blues there are. This is great. But we're also seeing that there are pockets where it's higher. So this right here is by Willow Creek Country Club. This is a hot spot. And we're not just seeing just oranges, but we're seeing reds and even the dark reds. So here's a home right here, 29.6. Here's another one, 21.8. Let's zoom in on these two. Are these neighbors? Hey, look, okay, we got 2 neighbors right here. So this blue one, 3.6, and their next door neighbor, 16.1. So isn't that interesting? I'm going to zoom out a little bit. Now let's take a look at the benches again. So this is between Big Cottonwood and Little Cottonwood Canyon on Wasatch Boulevard. And we're right up against the mountain, and we're still seeing a good number of low tests, which is good. But as we get south, we're now starting to see more tests. So this is the base of Little Cottonwood Canyon. And yeah, there's some really high ones, 15.7, 24.6, 16. right here, 16. But then you go a couple down and 2.5, 3.3. So I'm just going to jump over here to Harriman area. And let's take a look at this. Look at this neighborhood. A lot of people have tested in this neighborhood, which is great. And what I'm seeing here, this looks like this is more of about a 50-50, but let's actually see kind of how different it is from house to house. Zooming in, all right, this house right here in the dark red, 24.3. Their next door neighbor is 7, and then 2 houses down, 2.2. Across the street from them, 2.5. So 2.5, and remember, 24.3, that's 10 times higher just across the street. So what am I hoping that you're getting from this? And that is, if your next door neighbor tests high for radon, does that mean that you're going to have high radon? Absolutely not. If they test low for radon, does that mean that you're safe? Absolutely not as well. Every single home needs to test. And this is not because the tests were inaccurate or anything like that. It's just, it really is that huge of a difference. Just a little bit of extra uranium in the soil makes a huge difference. Going further west in Harriman, if you look, here is a brand new subdivision. It's an Ivory subdivision, beautiful homes. Let's take a look at some of these levels: 16.1, 35.2, 22.4, 44.2, 4 packs of cigarettes a day, 20.8, 19.7, 32.1. So would I move into this neighborhood? Absolutely. But would I make sure that a radon system was installed in the home and tested? Absolutely too. So let's go back to the question before, and where was that high radon test? We're now looking at Utah Valley. And let me just step back and say something. In this case, Utah Valley, actually, the benches are a little bit higher than out in the middle, which was not the case in Salt Lake Valley. So where was that high radon test? Right here in Saratoga Springs. So there is an old folks, retirement community that they are, they even have a pool that's heated by the hot springs. So this is an area where for millions of years, there've been hot springs. Well, what has that hot springs been doing? Dissolving rock, bringing it to the surface. And this is where we tested our 155. So, and multiple homes in this little tiny community. This another home, 142, pretty crazy. But again, very fixable. If you look, just go a little bit north of the brand new high school up here in Saratoga Springs. This neighborhood, I mean, what is that? 90%? Everybody's high. But then you go to the next neighborhood over and it's very hit and miss. Okay, well, because of time, we can't really keep going, but I'm happy to take a few people's, hey, let's look at this area or something like that. So unmute yourself. And while you do, I'm just going to keep showing Alpine area, very high. Alpine Highland, very high. As you go down to Linden, American Fork, again, very high. Does somebody have an area that you want to see? Unmute yourself. This right here is Heber. As I said, it's very, very high in Midway.
Hey,
Yeah, what about Daybreak?
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, let's talk about Daybreak. Daybreak's an interesting one. So, you've got the Daybreak Pond right here. And so you got the Daybreak Pond, and I think we just are starting to actually test the new homes being built on the pond. I would say to the west, and especially the northwest of Daybreak, we are seeing, some really high homes, 35.7, 38.9. To the east of Daybreak, the pond, we're still seeing some high ones, so you're going to want to test. And to the south as well. If you go out past the Mountain View corridor, these homes to the west of it, they're coming in high as well. So, basically all this area, you really do want to test because you have some potential of very, very high. So,
Hey, Bruno.
Yes.
I'm wondering about if Kennecott has much to do with that. And then also I've heard that you're not allowed to dig in Daybreak. I'm not sure if that's true, but I just hear the HOA doesn't want you to be digging. Does that have something to do with the radon?
The answer is, how do I answer that? Yes and no. The answer is mainly no. And the reason why is if you I'm zoomed out, take a look at this. So you got Daybreak here. Well, take a look at South Jordan. I mean, Kennecott had nothing to do with all this here. And this is actually much higher concentrations of high radon than Daybreak is. So, and the reason why I said kind of is because they did have to bring in fill, and some of that fill could have had high uranium. So that's why you may get some pockets where that developer, brought in fill. Let's look at this by Ewok Park. What a great name. So this, I mean, this is really high, yet just to the east of it, it's kind of low. I would say it may be possible that they brought in some fill here, or Kennecott dumped some things, but I would not blame Kennecott on that at all. Does that help answer your question?
Yeah, it does. I was mostly wondering about the digging. Has anybody else heard about the HOA and Daybreak telling them not to dig? I'm wondering if that has something to do with it.
We are allowed to dig when we're installing a radon system. But I don't know about, you can't dig a trampoline pit or something like that. I don't know anything about that. Okay, so unfortunately, because of timing, we're going to have to jump out. If any of you guys do anything up north, let me just quickly show you kind of up north.
Hey, Bruno, while you're just scrolling up there, I just want to point out a couple of things in the chat that you can address now, or if you were going to get to them later.
Yes.
And one was when we were talking about the types of homes that don't have radon. Sharice had put in the comments, mitigated homes. I know you and I have had some experience with that. So there's that one. And then there was another question about where you're pointing out the high levels and low levels right next door to each other.
Yes.
And Jeff wanted to know if that was due to the difference in the home's ventilation, maybe?
The answer could be a whole bunch of different things. One thing that we know for sure is that the home that is high, it's because there's high uranium underneath it. You're not going to have a high radon if there's low uranium underneath the home. The question of why is the other home not high? It could be the ventilation, or it could be that there's just a little bit more uranium underneath their neighbors than theirs. It does not take that much at all. So just looking north, just really quickly, I mean, here's Hill Air Force Base. There's a lot of blues. And so I would definitely say this northern area, there's less likelihood of radon, but we should still be testing. But as you then keep going north, we're now North Ogden, it's getting high. And look, as soon as you start getting up, more the Brigham City and to the Logan Cache Valley, it's high up there. So just a heads up. Okay, let's get back to the presentation. Great questions, by the way. All right, what are the radon laws in Utah? So right now, as I said before, the EPA is leaving this up to individual states to enforce and come up with their own laws. There are certain states that are very, very proactive and progressive. There are certain states that you're actually mandatory need to do a radon test. Or if you're building a new construction, you need to do radon resistant features. Utah, not one of those. So there's one law in the books, and that law is disclosure. So Utah, very less aggressive. Now, there's actually legislation where they're trying to get it more aggressive, but that's for years away. So right now, it's disclosure law. If you have a client, a seller, who got a radon test, let's say maybe a buyer came in, they got a radon test, and then they couldn't get financing and they backed out. But you were given that radon test. You now know there's a problem with this home. You must disclose it when you relist it. So just FYI. So disclosure of high radon tests done in the past. Now, if you install a radon mitigation system and fix it, then you're good. You don't need to worry about that. There's nothing to disclose. In fact, the radon system is a feature of the house because it shows that this house has been fixed if it was done correctly. Some states require, again, Utah right now, the only thing is the disclosure. So in order for us to find out about is a home high, we need to test it. So the average Utah inspector, only about 50% of them are even doing radon tests, and they charge on average about $100. So, just be aware of that. And it's normally not something that they just include in their package. There are some that are starting to do it, which is great, but most of them have it like, okay, do you want a meth test? Do you want a mold test? Do you want a radon test? Those are all on top of the $300 or $400 that they're charging. So because of this, less than 5% of real estate transactions were getting tested before our company came on to the scene. 5%, that's horrible. So what we decided to do is we offer free radon testing for real estate transactions within 50 miles of Draper. And so that's something that you can be aware of for your clients. So because of what we did, some inspectors are now starting to offer free testing as a package as well, which is fantastic. All we care about is we want people to test. So when you are talking to your clients and they're interested in getting a radon test, which you should be encouraging, it's anywhere from free to about $100 in cost. So let's talk about how do we actually test, and we're following the EPA guidelines. We're keeping closed house conditions, which just means that we want to test the home when it is in the most likely scenario to have high radon, which would be the case in winter months. In winter months, we're not opening up our windows, we're not keeping our doors propped open, and so that's how we want to test. Even if it's summertime, we want to keep those windows closed on the entire home. So if they have an AC unit, great, totally fine to run that and just normal. If they have a swamp cooler, it's impossible to test an occupied home in the summertime, because if for them to keep their windows closed and their swamp cooler off, it'd be 120 degrees in there. It's impossible. If it's a vacant home, we can just keep the swamp cooler off and then we can test it. So just be aware of that. Swamp cooler homes that are occupied are impossible to test in the summer months. So just be aware. Okay, totally fine for the family to be home while we're testing. They just can't mess with the equipment and they can't open up windows and doors. And it's only for a very small period of time. How long does it take to test a home? Just 2 days. So minimum is 46 hours. It's for scheduling reasons. So if they get there a little bit early to pick up the test, it's not invalid. So any test that's 46 hours or more, we're good. Who can perform the test? Can Jeff just buy a little detector and just say, I give this to all my clients? No, and the reason why is that he's not an independent third party to the transaction, so it needs to be a home inspector or a licensed radon services provider. We are the ones that are setting the tests, we're collecting the tests, we're using only approved equipment, and there are a lot of inspectors that are unfortunately not using the right equipment. They're using some consumer do-it-yourself kind of thing. We want to make sure that they're not doing that. So if you ever have a home inspector that you're kind of questioning, did he do this right? Feel free to contact a radon company and show them the report and make sure that that inspector is doing it right. So where are we doing it? We're doing the tests in the potentially lowest livable level in the home. So usually this is be the basement area. And if it's unfinished, that's okay, because they might finish it someday. Now, if this is one of those like sugar house homes that they dug out the basement and it really is just a storage pit area, nobody's going to spend time down there, then no, we would not test that. We would test above. We're never testing in crawl spaces. So nobody spends time in a crawl space. So, I mean, unless you're Harry Potter and they shoved you underneath the stairs in the crawl space, you're not there. We're testing in the level above the crawl space, or if there's a basement attached to it, but that you can spend time in, we would be testing in the basement area. Where can you test? And the answer is you can really test anywhere in that lowest level. We want to try to avoid the mechanical room, bathroom, small closets. And why? Nobody's spending time there. So if you have an inspector that he always is setting in the mechanical room, tell him he needs to go get some training, because that's wrong. That's against the EPA standards. We're not trying to bust the home for the highest area of the highest radon. We want to put it in a place that's very livable. Also, that mechanical room, because of the fresh air intakes, the radon levels actually may be lower in that mechanical room than the rest of the basement. And now he's doing a disservice, because you may have a high radon home, except for if you spend time in the mechanical room. So we're not putting the tests on the floor. We're putting them on boxes, on chairs, on tables. We're keeping it off the floor because nobody breathes directly on the floor. And we're keeping them away from windows and vents. So we've tested the home, it comes back high. Now we need to fix it. So radon mitigation. Very, very simple how we fix a radon home. We are not pulling air from inside of the home. We're actually pulling air from under the home, directly in the dirt. So we're basically vacuuming the dirt. And this is a permanent installation, and we're venting it out at roof level. You wouldn't think that you could suck on dirt. It's amazing how well you can. So we can do this cost effectively. We can do it as hidden as possible. And here's how we do it. The interior systems, this just means that the piping we were able to keep on the inside of the house, hide it somehow. Maybe we're going up through a chase, maybe through a garage or a closet. The fan is in the attic and we're popping through the roof. So all you see on the outside is just another pipe popping through the roof. So, great advantages there if we can hide it and it's not too destructive as we go all the way up through the inside of the house. So average cost of a system in Utah, not just us. I mean, most radon companies are within $50 to $100 plus or minus of each other. So there's not a big difference. Average cost is right around $1,400 for a radon system. So there's that. The exterior system is we're doing the same kind of a thing. By the way, this is really key too. Half a day to install this. This is not some big, huge construction project. We can get in and out of your clients' homes and not make a mess if we do it right. Exterior systems, we're still sucking. So if you look at my mouse, we're still sucking underneath the slab because we've drilled down through, but now we're coming up with the pipe and popping out to the outside, and the fan is outside. Looks like a basketball on a pipe down low. The rose bushes hide it. And then we can go up and over the eave with the pipe to vent because we have to vent at roof level. And, very simple sometimes. And, just another option for us to run it. So we can change it from the PVC to the gutter. That's what we do standard because it looks ugly to have PVC up the side of your house. So it just looks like another rain gutter on the side of your house. And again, it's right around the same pricing than an interior system. So which one is better? If you have a, $15 million house up in the colonies, we've done this multiple homes up there. Was it an interior system or systems or an exterior? And the answer is we've done both. We did 5 exterior systems on a $15 million colony home because that was the only way of how we could do it because inside the home would have been too disruptive. There was copper downspout and there were fan covers. There were ways of making it least invasive as possible. So is there a better system than another? No, it just depends on the individual home and how do we hide it best inside and outside. So crawl spaces, vapor barrier across the dirt. We've completely sealed it. This is not just this cheap Visqueen. This is 10 mil, very strong class A vapor barrier. It's completely glued to the foundation walls. We're pulling a suction underneath it. And because of the additional work and labor, it's a little bit more expensive. So remember, it's about $1,400 for a regular system. You're between $2,000 and $4,000 for a regular kind of sized crawl space. We have done some crawl spaces that, it was, double that, but just because it was a 4,000 or 5,000 square foot crawl space. And again, crawl spaces usually still only about a day. So this is not, again, a huge construction project. Speaking of construction, new construction, we're able to go up through the inside of the walls while they're building it. We're able to do more piping under the slab before they pour it. And so it's fantastic because we're able to really ensure that the system is hidden and works as well as possible. And the good news is it's about the same pricing from the radon company to the builder or to your client if they're paying directly. So again, between $1,400 and $1,600. Now, unfortunately, there's a lot of builders that still aren't even offering it as an option, or they mark it up like double. So, I mean, if a builder's trying to charge $3,500 for a radon system, it's really a shame because the markup is, I don't want to tell them what to do with their business, but this is a safety product and, they've now priced it so that way nobody wants to get it. So it's really too bad. So, just be aware of that. I mean, builders are paying, right around the same price as what a normal radon system would be. But again, it's great when you can build them right into the home. All right, because of timing, this is the last section, so let's just keep going. This radon in your deals. So, you're buying a house, you're selling a house, it tests high, dun, dun, dun. Now, you can handle it really, really poorly. And if you do, then, it's a shame. But if you handle it the right way, no big deal. Thank you, Jeff. I see you giggling. I appreciate that. All right, so let's just do a quick review. Between 2 and 3.9, consider fixing. So this is negotiable. We see typically in a real estate transaction, probably those that are testing between the 2 and 3.9, maybe only 20% end up getting a radon system. And in that case, of that 20%, probably 80% of that was paid by the buyer. So the seller did not pay for it. So sometimes we are seeing sellers pay for systems, even if it's below 3.9. And a lot of this just deals with your positioning in being able to negotiate. So if there are 20 other people that just put an offer on that home and the radon test comes back at 2.5, you're going to have a pretty hard time convincing them to pay for a radon system. Should your client consider one after the sale? If they have kids sleeping in the basement, yes. But getting the seller to pay for it, probably not. But if this is a situation where you don't have multiple other people bidding on the property, and your client just is, you just say to the other party, hey, my client's adamant about this, they're very concerned, then oftentimes you can get them to pay for it. Once we get to 4 and above, even though this marketplace is crazy, we're still seeing mostly the sellers are paying for the radon systems. Just one more thing that they need to do. So sometimes we do people split, the buyers and the sellers. Every once in a while, we'll see the agents pay for it, and we hate that because you guys work really hard for your commissions. We don't want to see you buying a new roof for them, buying a new cooler, buying a new radon system. Do what you need to, but it's not the norm, that's for sure. Because of the 2 days, you need to order the tests early. You can't order the test a day before due diligence. And you also need to think about, okay, once we do that, do we need to fix it before closing? Not necessarily. Sometimes we fix the homes after closing. It's just, you need to make sure that you get it identified before due diligence deadline. So remember, again, average costs around $1,400. And the key takeaways is, let's go from start to bottom. Radon is a big health risk. You want to protect your clients. And the only way to do this is to test every home. Please do not guess on the type of home or the location of, is it going to have a radon problem? Because even me, after seeing tens of thousands of tests, I wouldn't guess. I've got no clue. So just be aware of that. Next one, all types of homes can have radon, even slab on grade. So again, please don't guess on what the house is based on the house type. The 1 in 3 homes have high levels. And so, yes, your client actually has a more chance of not testing high than testing high in most areas. And now is your chance to protect your buyers, and you get them to get a radon test. And this is the only chance that they're ever going to have somebody else to pay for the radon system. So if you think about it, you're trying to keep your buyers cradle to grave. So someday they're going to become sellers. Well, 5 years from now, if you didn't get them to test when they were buyers and now they're sellers and somebody tests and it comes in high, they're going to look at you and say, Jeff, why didn't we test 5 years ago? Why did I live in high radon and I now have to pay for it for somebody else? And the answer is, you don't have to ever have that conversation. Test with your buyers now, and you'll never have that conversation going forward. So very, very fixable, should never mess up a deal. If any of you ever have a deal going sideways because of radon, talk to Jeff, give us a call. We can even do a 3-way call. We can talk your client or whoever it is off the ledge, or from the ledge, not off the ledge. So we'll make sure that this does not mess up your deal, because radon is so fixable. It's not that big of a deal. We just need to identify it, fix it, and you're good to go. So when all said and done, this is the very last point, is hopefully this now solidifies in your mind, I'm now going to start testing for every single buyer that comes under contract. So whether you use us, whether you use your favorite inspector, whether you use somebody else, the key is please determine who your radon testing source is going to be. Start using them for every single buyer. That's it.
Hey, on that note, Bruno, I don't even ask my clients if they want one. It's part of our transaction checklist. When my buyers go under contract, I just let them know, hey, it's not going to cost you anything, but the first thing we're going to do is we're going to set up the radon test. I've already talked to my inspector. His opening of time is, during this window of time, they can come out and do the home inspection unless you have your own inspector. But that is just that's like almost number one when we go under contract is schedule radon, especially in a tight due diligence period. I got to get you out there ASAP, right? I can't have you go out there on a Thursday if my due diligence ends on a Friday.
Right.
So guys, just make it standard. Your clients aren't going to argue with you that you're having a free test. Now, of course, if it's outside that area that Bruno talked about from Draper, talk to him about that. So I got that comment. I got one question and then one more comment, and then I'll open it up to you guys. Sydney, it looks like she had to jump. Oh, she's back on. So Sydney had a question. She texted me wanting to know how long, and I think I know the answer to this, but how long does somebody start seeing effects from high radon levels, with lung cancer and stuff like that? Are they like okay for a couple of years, or what's the answer to that?
So I've been to many symposiums and conferences with Dr. Akerley. I asked him that specific question because it's not readily available, that answer. And he said that he has seen patients anywhere from 4 years from exposure up to 40 years. So you can literally be 3 years old and have that event where the radon damages the DNA and you don't actually get diagnosed with lung cancer until you're 43. Or it could be that you could be in your 20s and 30s. So the answer is, it is typically multiple years of exposure and then multiple years afterwards that you then experience it. Great question.
A great thing for you guys to take away. And Bruno, you'll send me these slides, right? We can make these available to everybody. And
Cody has these in PDF. Yes.
I really like the one where you make the relatable connection to cigarettes. It's like this. People can go, oh, wow, I would never smoke 8 cigarettes a day. Smoker, non-smoker, right? They're just like, now they have something relatable to understand what the damage could be. So I really like that one. So we'll share that with you guys. The other comment I wanted to make goes back to Sharice's comment about the type of home. And she put in there a mitigated home. I once sold a home to a buyer up by Walker Lane. It's over $1 million home, big, beautiful home, over a 3,000 square foot basement. Bruno, you might remember this one. I was sitting there with the inspector. He's going through the inspection report. We're sitting at the table and he gets to his pictures of the radon mitigation home or in the home. And we had only been through the home once when we wrote our offer, right? So I didn't notice that it had an exterior mitigation system because it was winter. And we walked around the house a little bit, but we didn't inspect the exterior of the house. And I didn't notice it. We didn't notice it where it was installed. As we're looking at that going, I'm going, oh crap, I'm going to have to compensate Bruno for coming out here. You don't generally schedule a test on a mitigated home, right? As we're looking at that, Bruno's guys shows up at the house with his test kit and went in the basement and set it up. Turns out it was super high.
Yeah.
I remember the exact number. Do you remember that home, Bruno?
I remember being shocked at how high it was because in the past, before you, Jeff, we always said, you know what, we definitely won't do a free test. We normally charge $50 for, hey you.
Hey.
We usually, charge $50 at least just cover our costs for, a home that already has one. But from then, we now actually encourage people, if it does already have a radon system, we need to charge at least $50 to cover our cost to do it. But it actually is a good idea because I didn't think that we would have a situation like yours, but no, that radon system was not working. Even though it was turned on, it wasn't effective. So yeah, pretty crazy.
Yeah, so I wanted to point that out to answer your question, Sharice, for one, because Bruno just mentioned it himself. Hey, it's already got a mitigation system. My inspector even said, here, I can tell it's functioning properly because of this, this, and this.
Yeah.
So don't take that chance. If it's free, schedule it. It's not even a question. Put it on there for your clients. Let them know also, hey, we noticed it has a mitigation system. It'll cost you a little bit of money, just like a home inspector is going to cost them, right? $50 more. I now have a specific example where if I would have said, oh, you don't need to do that because it already has a mitigation system. Remember the example Bruno told about the person that got cancer and the agent said, oh, you don't need to do that. I never tell my clients they don't need to do something. I give them the options. We're providers of information. They make the decisions. So don't get yourself in that situation of making assumptions.
Great point, Jeff.
Can I ask a quick question too? So, because I would like to start doing this with my listing, so preempting it, because I have had several that have been positive lately. So do you charge, like I usually call and set up the appointment. I don't wait for the inspector or anything. Jessica's great. So do you charge, like if we're getting ready to put it on the market right before that, just so that we're aware of it and can fix it?
This is such a tough question, and here's why is, yeah, I hate to discourage people from doing radon tests. Remember that disclosure law. If your client knows, they now have to disclose it. And inspections are a buyer's responsibility. So it's a tough one because if you and your client want to know and then fix it, great. But once they know, then they're obligated to have to fix it. So most people would say inspections are the responsibility of the buyer. So like, for example, this is actually a better example than initially thought. So your clients lived in the home for 3 years and that's now going to go under contract again. Is your client also going to do a meth test to see if the people before them actually maybe had meth and then they find that out? So it's in some ways kind of the same thing with radon. Typically, we just leave it up to the buyers. Now, have we done pre-listing tests? Yes. And would we do it for your client? Yes. Just be aware, you need to make sure that they really understand if we get this back, they might, they're now on the hook.
Charisse, my input on that is do it if your seller is the type of seller that wants to convey a good product to the next buyer. And if it's positive, they're going to fix it. So it's a non-issue. I would say, go ahead, do that. It's kind of like getting a home inspection prior to listing. If they want to go through that punch list and really make this house top notch and they're going to fix all these things, then do it. If not, now you know what you didn't know previously, and you must disclose anything that might materially affect the value of the property in the eyes of the buyer if you know about it. Right? Whether it's a question on the SBCDs or not, if you know of something that might affect the value of that home, then you should disclose. So it's kind of a personal issue. I would probably talk per client with that based on what their intent is, what they're going to do with that knowledge.
Yeah.
No, I agree. Just wondering. Because it could even be in this market where there's, 56 offers on a property. The sellers can disclose, hey, there's radon, so that saves the week. Because Bruno, don't you guys need a week notice to set the system?
It depends on it depends. In this time of year, if you were to call us right now, we're 2 weeks out. If you were to call us in July, we can get to you next day.
Okay.
So, because radon levels are lower in the summer and higher in the winter, so radon companies typically tend to be busier in the colder months.
Well, and that's what I was wondering, is just expedite putting on seller disclosure. Hey, we know there's radon, so that's an extra cost that the buyers might need to be aware they need to pay for. But I don't know, just trying to cut time down.
Yeah.
No, that's a good point, because sellers aren't really fixing a lot of things for buyers these days anyway. And a lot of buyers even aren't asking for it. So that is a really good point. It's just like, hey, we're aware of this. We're not going to fix it, but thought you should know as you're moving forward on the transaction.
Yeah. Well, if you guys would please just remember, we're the only radon company that has the word Utah on it. Maybe that'll help you remember us. But again, yeah, if you come under contract, if you need a test or if you need mitigation, we'd love to help you. Hey, great questions. Love to do this. Marchants, you guys have a great group, and we always love dealing with you guys.
Thank you.
Awesome. And if anybody has any other questions, this is your last shot to grab Bruno before he hops on to his next thing. Going once.
All right, guys. Hey, have a great day. Thanks again.
Hey, we appreciate you, Bruno. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Hey, wasn't that great, guys? Good info, right?
Yep, really good info.
I will get the slide deck from you. I think sometimes visuals are super helpful for people. So if you want a copy of that, make sure you reach out to me. I'll get you a copy of that slide deck.